This is the Picard podcast on TV Podcast Industries. We're back with Season 2 of Star Trek Picard, talking about Episode 1, The Stargazer. Welcome back, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. It's TV Podcast Industries. We're back with Star Trek Picard, talking about The Stargazer, the first episode of Season 2. I'm one of your hosts, Derek.
Hello there, fellow Trekkies. I am one of your other hosts, John.
Hello, Trekkies. How are you? Jokes aside. Hello, fellow Trekkies. Welcome back. We're here for Season 2.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. It's finally kicked off. It is an interesting kickoff.
It really is. We talked about it on our our annual wrap-up when we were talking about the end of 2021. I kind of made the comment that I'm looking forward to lots of Season 2s and Season 3s this year, because we've covered lots of Season 1s. And I do feel there's a nice shorthand that comes in with the Season 2. You get the reintroduction of all the characters that you know and love, but you've already got that idea of who they are, so you don't have to spend too much time on them. You can kind of jump into the adventure really quickly. So always love a Season 2.
Yes, absolutely, Mon Capitan.
Thanks, John. Always good. Thank you so much for joining us for Star Trek Picard. I know there's hundreds of podcasts out there about Star Trek, so it's really nice of you to spend some time with us for our coverage of Star Trek Picard. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, you can subscribe to it over at tvpodcastindustries.com. It does have its own feed, the Picard podcast from TV Podcast Industries. So if you want to hear any of our thoughts on Season 1, you can go back there and listen to all of those. We'd love to hear your thoughts too. You can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com with any of your thoughts on any of the episodes. We'll read them out on the next podcast. We are recording a little bit in advance, thankfully. So we'll hopefully be able to get this out as the show is released on Prime Video and on Paramount Plus in the US, so hopefully you'll enjoy our thoughts about the episode, the first one, and then we'll hear your thoughts for the second episode.
Yes. Paramount Plus, the ultimate streaming app that allows you to go to the top of a mountain, because that's their logo.
Apparently, and that was an entire trailer last year at the Super Bowl, wasn't it? That was their whole thing, everybody climbing that mountain on Paramount Plus. We will eventually get that in Europe in the future. But there has been, I know, some problems with Paramount Plus because they've been taking some of their content like Star Trek Discovery and moving it off to a channel that most of us can't get over here, unfortunately. But we do get the ability to watch Star Trek Picard because it's on Prime Video in the UK and Europe, which is cool. Just like the first season was. Will we get into our discussion about the first episode of Star Trek Picard?
Yes, let's get into our spoiler-filled review.
Of Season 2 of Star Trek Picard.
Of Season 2, yes.
First up, the episode itself was written by Akiva Goldsman and Terry Matalas. Akiva is one of the show's producers in many of the episodes last season. Terry Matalas, this is the first episode he's done of Picard, but his first writing credit was for 2 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, so does have some experience in the world of Star Trek.
Great stuff, yeah. Nice to have members of the old team back from Enterprise.
Absolutely. And speaking of members of the old team, the episode was directed by Doug Aarniokoski, who directed 2 episodes of Picard Season 1. He directed Episode 6 and Episode 7. And will be directing Episode 2 of this season as well.
Always a good thing. Especially when you can't get a showrunner in to write and direct, at least this way. You're having alumni, if you will.
Well, there are 4 showrunners on the show, and Akiva Goldsman is one of those showrunners. So he is involved in the writing for the overall show as well. So, John, do you want to give us the synopsis for this episode of Star Trek Picard, The Stargazer?
Sure. 1.5 years after becoming a synthetic life on Coppelius, Admiral Jean Luc Picard has returned to tending his vines with Laris at Chateau Picard and leading the Starfleet Academy. Aboard the newly refitted Stargazer, Captain Rios and his crew discover a spatial anomaly with a simple message. They want to join the Federation, but only if they can deal directly with Admiral Picard.
And excitement ensues.
Yes, indeed.
If you didn't get to join us for Star Trek Picard Season 1, let's quickly go through our structure, how we talk about the episodes. We talk about our top 3 moments from the episode each. Our biggest moment is our Prime Directive, our medium moment is our Omega Directive, and the other moment that we'll be discussing is a small general order. We're going to start with our general order, the small moment from the episode that we recognised.
Make it so, number one.
Who wants to kick us off with their general order?
I think I can. A little bit of the vineyard and Picard and Laris tending the vines. It was kind of, yes, beam me up Pinot Noir, basically.
Interesting.
I thought it was really interesting that they were harvesting the grapes with transporters into the sort of hovering sort of collectors, which was quite good. And
the future of wine production.
Yeah, the future of wine production. You could do strawberries and raspberries, all, I mean, how much energy it uses, I don't know, but even just the label as well coming onto the bottle, looked pretty swanky. So, yeah, I thought this was just a nice little, like, you know, it could just have been people harvesting the grapes, and instead they, you know, special effects and a bit of thought that, well, you know, in this day and age in the Federation, it would be beam me up Pinot Noir, I guess, or Cab Sauv, or whatever. Yeah.
It's really interesting, because and I suppose there's one of those early questions we all had about transporters. How do they really work? How do you move the particles of a person to another place? And I guess it's so clear that it is still the same thing that's transported. So you can use the transporter to move the grapes to where you want them to move to. They're still the same grapes. They're not going to suddenly turn sour because they're transported. But I do wonder if there will be a transporter malfunction in the future, which creates a terrible batch of wine for Chateau Picard.
Maybe. And I guess as well, it's straight as you start episode 1 of season 2. And of course, Chateau Picard being sort of central, at least initially, in grounding Picard in this whole new series back on Earth.
Yeah.
And here we have it again, starting off with the harvest of the wine.
Absolutely.
And the celebration of that. So yeah, really good.
Synthetic Picard seems very happy in back in Chateau Picard.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
I have so many questions about the transporter of the wine, though, because the whole thing about it is you're basically reconstructing and then constructing again, or sorry, deconstructing and then reconstructing atoms.
Yeah.
So theoretically, it's not the same thing.
Or is it
destroyed one and then made it another? So I'm like,
yeah, that's a replicator.
No, because you're destroying it. You're breaking it apart as it transports it, and then you reconstruct it.
Are you, Chris?
On the other side.
Should we refer to Vision from WandaVision, trying to understand whether the ship is still the same ship if it's been reconstructed or not? No,
true.
I think if Picard's going to be using the transporter, I think we can probably put it to bed that it is the same grape that's been transported.
Good. Hopefully.
Let's hope.
There you go. Transporter accent, season 3 of Star Trek Picard.
Yes.
Chris.
Picard is also a grape.
Yeah.
Chris, do you want to give us your small moment from the episode?
Yeah, very, very quick one. Soji, we do not know how much she'll be involved in this season. I assumed a lot, but maybe not, because she, as herself and Jurati are doing diplomatic pieces of work, as she says she's continued for the last year and a bit, going around the solar system, as they have no longer outlawed synthetics, basically trying to give herself diplomatic immunity by going around and just kind of like, hello, let's party and smooth and etc. etc. So she's leaning into being synthetic.
Yes. Yeah.
With her super hearing.
Absolutely. And it's kind of outreach work, really, is what they're doing, to kind of show people that they do belong in the Federation, that they belong as part of the Federation. I do kind of like that Jurati kind of makes a comment that it's kind of like the Matrix, that Soji comes along and she just uploads what she needs for a great speech and then goes and makes the speech. Yeah. But it's really interesting. I love Jurati's kind of watching over her, just getting drunk at the bar.
Yeah. I just hope she is involved this season, because she stays.
Yes.
And I was wondering, I'm curious, is that okay, we'll see you again, like, later on, maybe for, like, a bit of an episode. I just no idea, because my expectation was they kind of made her OP, overpowered, because she is now a synthetic who, as you said, can just upload stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it could be difficult when you're kind of like, oh no, what do we do about time travel? We're stuck in the we're stuck here, we're stuck there.
Yeah.
And she goes, hold on 1 second, let me just upload all of Stephen Hawking's and Albert Einstein's theory of time travel. Okay, I'm an expert now. So I think potentially they kept her there for that reason, but I hope not, because I do enjoy her as a character.
Yeah, and given season 1 was basically, I would say, a two-hander between her and Jean Luc Picard, that the story was really about the two of them as central, and obviously loads of other characters in there. It is definitely noticeable that by the end of the episode, she's the only main character from season 1 that wasn't aboard the ship or wasn't close by to the Stargazer at the end of the episode. So interesting one to catch. But yeah, it's nice to at least see her out on the diplomatic mission after what they went through to get incorporated into the Federation.
And will most likely be there given the reintroduction, because otherwise why would you do it? But it's also just the nod, I guess, to the fact that Picard is a synthetic as well, which basically wasn't mentioned. I really thought there was going to be something very much around that, but it's interesting that it was just Picard and it's moved on almost.
Yeah, there was just some small comments, I suppose, but it's been a year and a half. There was a time jump of a year and a half since the end of the last season, so I guess everybody got that all out of their system in those discussions.
I guess so,
over the last year. My small point for this episode is I just thought it was really interesting. Elnor, the Romulan who joined the crew last season, being brought in as a recruit to Starfleet Academy. The reason why I picked this point out is just because I love that Star Trek always has to be really careful of their wording of things. So when Picard's announcing it to the audience at Starfleet Academy, he goes, speaking of first steps, this is the first full Romulan recruit in Starfleet Academy, just in case someone's written a half Romulan recruit in one of the books or comics in the past. So they've covered themselves there. First full Romulan recruit in Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, I thought this was really good, though. I'm really glad that that's where they've taken Elnor, that he is now in Starfleet Academy and effectively graduating here as well, I think. Or graduating at least to the vocational side of the academy, which is getting experience on the Excelsior with Raffi.
Yes. Moving on for Raffi, I love how they treat the relationship between Raffi and Elnor. They're now very much mother and son here. She's very protective of him. They're both going to be stationed aboard the Excelsior, formerly captained, or at least captained the last time we saw it by Hikaru Sulu. That was his captaincy. So I was wondering whether we'd see Sulu on board as the captain of the Excelsior at some point in this season. But very interested to see the two of them go off together. I love that we have the same kind of dynamic that we get with Picard and Elnor is a similar dynamic that we see with Kirk and Spock, or with Picard and Data in the past, where it's someone that doesn't really understand the ways of this world that he's joining, the Federation. He doesn't really understand them. And Picard's kind of telling him, look, don't worry about your studies getting affected by the excitement and adventure you're going to be going on the spaceship. Just have a little fun. Just relax. Enjoy it. And takes the words from Spock's biography, effectively, to give him some guidance on how to deal with the Federation, which I just thought was a nice little touch.
Yeah, definitely.
And hopefully we'll see a lot more, because Elnor was one of our favourite characters from season 1.
Well, he's good with the blade.
He certainly is, yeah. Good fighter, too. Good fighter. Will we go on to our second point for the episode?
Let's do it.
Implement the Omega Directive immediately.
Our Omega Directive. John, do you want to kick us off with your Omega Directive?
Yeah, for me, it was really glad to see Rios back, but he's not at the helm of La Sirena. He's on the USS Stargazer. And just a nice little tie into it being previously the first command of Jean Luc Picard back in the day. Although the USS Stargazer is now updated, or a totally new craft, which does have Borg technology integrated into its components and its systems. So that's not going to turn out badly, is it?
No, of course not. Ever. Never. The thing is, like, we'll take our enemy's technology that is mostly machine and integrate it with ours, and it'll be fine.
Exactly.
But a nice tie back to season 1. It was taken from the Borg artifact that they were working on in season 1. So it is tying back to what was going on. They did take something good from the technology that they were studying in season 1.
Yeah, and Also, he's got a big fat cigar in his mouth as well. I can't really say I see much smoke, so it might just be he's chewing on the end of it. But I thought that was kind of interesting.
He has a lighter.
He is given a lighter by his number one, by at least one of the
Yes,
one
he
of the
does.
people
Yeah, absolutely.
on the ship. They do hand him a lighter, but you're right, it is a smokeless cigar throughout. I do wonder, I know there's restrictions on TV for alcohol use and cigarette smoke and that kind of stuff, so I wonder, will we ever see smoke coming out of the cigar that he
Well,
has in his
who
mouth?
knows? Maybe in some desperate moment,
It's funny, isn't
he
it?
just needs to take one last sort of drag on the big fat cigar. But I also just love, it's where they head off to investigate this spatial anomaly, and just the whole thing of how to engage or make it so, or all this.
Yeah.
I love that they just kind of riffed on that a bit, saying the weight of expectation given that it was Picard's command originally on the USS Stargazer. So I just like that, because it's always one of those difficult moments, isn't it? It's like what they're going to do when they head off into warp, So
Yeah, absolutely. They have a nice riff on that in Star Trek Discovery as well, where one of the characters takes the captain's seat for the first time and has to work out what they're going to say. I'm trying to keep that spoiler free since we don't cover Discovery over here. Yes. But I do like the idea that everybody has to have some kind of phrase. Rios feels quite different in this episode than he did last season because of all the stuff he was going through, his memories being lost about when he was a member of Starfleet and what happened to him in the past, and those all being restored by the end of the season. He's now fully back in Starfleet as a captain of, I would say, quite a signature ship. The Stargazer would be a very well-known ship within Starfleet, so him getting the captaincy of that is a lot of confidence to have in Rios. But,
yeah, absolutely.
But really good to see him here. I like that he's on board there. And we also see that Jurati and himself have broken up. They were together at the end of last season, but their relationship not working now.
Absolutely not. A few of the relationships didn't work out in the end. We do have that with Seven of Nine and with Raffi as well.
Yeah.
So yes, they've kind of been flung to the corners of the galaxy, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'll use this as a perfect segue to my moment, and that is that love is lost in the future because no one can make it work with love.
Yep.
Jurati and Rios are no more. Seven, no more. And Picard doesn't want love. Which is a really interesting piece. So like this, he can't love because of his past is kind of the way I put the point. So seeing the fantastic Order Brady, who we can claim as Irish, and being up on screen and essentially saying after about 18 something months discovering that she actually is in love with or has feelings for Picard. After years of working together and her husband just dying 18 months ago. But essentially they make a move and Picard says no. And it's something which is it's an interesting thing. We get a flashback to the past of him and his mother, in Chateau Picard. And something happened to her.
Yeah.
Something weird. So they set up a really nice intrigue around, okay, what's going on and what happened to him in his childhood. Yeah. I'm assuming we're going to get time jumps around.
Yeah, it looks traumatic, doesn't it? She's kind of dragged into the dark
by an invisible
doorway
force.
by something. Yeah. But even just the young Jean-Luc says, will we fight less here as they've moved in? So not the idea that the family life of Jean-Luc Picard is maybe not as great as you would imagine. So thought that was interesting. And
I think that's going to piss off a lot of people.
Maybe.
Because the whole thing was, if I remember correctly, and again, my memory of Star Trek as a whole, and I said this in the last season when we kind of covered it, I've watched hundreds of times Next Generation, didn't like Enterprise, loved Discovery, loved Voyager. So I go through them. It's just every night, like it's not like Marvel in the back of my head. Right. It's just not encyclopedic levels.
Yeah.
But I do remember his whole thing shtick to a degree was that he was from a family of initially a lineage of explorers.
Yes.
And he mentions this in his speech. His dad wasn't, but he was always kind of given to the opinion, like everything was rosy with him. Like he wasn't a broken hero.
Yeah.
to a degree. He wasn't that broke. He was the Kirk. He was the suave captain, but with a bit of French in him, and he was the ladies' man, but he didn't need love because he was the explorer. And now we're starting to see, actually, there's a layer of depth here, which is, he did this because he was, or what we're supposed to assume is some traumatic experience that meant he couldn't love.
Maybe.
He didn't want to love, or there's something there.
It's definitely dropped in here because we have Laris, with the awkward kiss moment where she does say, I don't know whether you've been seeking or running, and it ties in with this traumatic flashback of his family and arriving at Chateau Picard. The other thing I thought was quite good with Laris is, we talk about all the humans effectively have sort of broken up, their relationships haven't worked out. Picard has some kind of, something that is holding him back from totally opening up. It's him being him, as they say the next day. And as Laris says, I can't do awkward. But it was interesting, just the Romulan perspective with, as her and Jean Luc are remembering, Chabon after him dying. She just says, yes, we do mourn, our husbands or our partners, when they have died, but we don't cling. We come back and love even more fiercely afterwards. And I thought that was, again, it's just that contrast, isn't it, with Jean-Luc being more reserved, really, in terms of how he does it, as he sort of, as he does sort of pull away from Laris as they look like they're going in for a bit of a kiss.
Well, she won't be because she's leaving him. She's no longer going to work with him. He then decides to up and leave her without even saying goodbye.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. It's like, hang on a second. Yesterday you were about to start a relationship with that woman.
Yeah, and
today
now you're
you
just
haven't
like,
even say goodbye.
And he's gone into space. Not even like, it's like, hello. Not even with a handwritten note going, love you, see you later, bye.
Here's my note.
No, it actually, love you, see you later, P.
Yeah.
With a smiley face, because he does smiley faces.
I have to say, I do love Laris's kind of come back to in the following morning, where she just goes, look, it's awkward now, and I'm way too old for awkward. I really like that with it. But there is a great relationship between the two of them. It's just kind of in small moments, the idea that he's walking around the house trying to look for a particular book, and she knows exactly what he's looking for before he even gives a description. She's already picking it up off the shelf, effectively. So she knows him that well.
Yeah. I think the whole thing is they have a relationship, like, i.e. they have a past. Like, it's been 20 years plus since he retired, so that she's been with them for 20 years in Chateau
Very long
Picard.
time. Yeah.
So it is, he's over a century old.
Almost. He's pushing a century. Yeah. It's like he's 93 or 94 in this show. But there is one other thing about this. This is probably the most often piece focused on within the Star Trek Next Generation and the movies is about Picard's regret that he didn't form a relationship. We've seen it in the movies. We've seen him look at his brother's family, the children that his brother had, and regret that he never got to that place. So this is definitely a central part of Picard's existence. I'm sure when Picard was envisioned as a character, they were just looking for the antithesis of Kirk. They were looking for someone that leads with their brain, not the fists, effectively. I don't think they intended to have him as a single character for the entirety of the 8 years or the 40 years of history that's there now with the Next Generation. I don't think it was ever intended, but it gets to a point when you have your hero character that doesn't have a partner, it gets to a point that suddenly you have to explain that. You go, hang on a second, he's quite old now, and he's never had a wife and kids or a partner and kids. That's never happened. Oh, we better explore that now. So, I like that they're doing it in this way in the show. So, quick one. Crusher? Wasn't Crusher?
Yeah, Beverly.
A long-term...
Absolutely. I'm actually going to bring this up in my big point for the episode, because there's another big discussion about that. But yes, Beverly Crusher and himself were married and divorced before the start of Picard season 1. They did have a relationship. They went off into the sunset together. And interestingly, he kind of says to Laris in this scene, he says, "I have loved, but not deeply." And she says, no, you've loved the unattainable ones. And you're kind of going, Beverly Crusher unattainable?
That's what exactly. There was a couple. What if it's like I'm here to roll with this logic.
Yep.
You tell me the story you want to tell
Exactly.
me. Again, we're like 55 minutes in at this point.
Yeah.
I'm like,
What's he saying about Beverly?
okay, what?
I know.
Yeah, it's
I know.
what about poor Will?
Yeah.
It's just like, because he also says the Picard name is no more. The lineage
That's
is
right.
dead.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what happened to his brother and the kids?
Well,
The brother's kids are dead. Question mark.
If you don't remember, it is detailed what happened to his nephews and nieces. Yeah.
Okay, grand. Okay, well, we'll get into that later then. But anyway, it's interesting. Jean Luc Picard has no heart. He is the scarecrow or the Tin Man trying to find a new
Quite
heart.
literally, he doesn't.
Yeah,
have a
well,
heart.
that's the other thing. Interestingly enough, it's him exploring this now as a synthetic. So that's another dimension to it, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
Speaking of synthetics or ex-synthetics, Derek, do you have a point?
I'd never call 7 of 9 a synthetic, Chris. She's an XB, an ex-Borg, former Borg. But my Omega Directive, my medium-sized point for the episode is 7 of 9, still fighting with the Fenris Rangers. You mentioned earlier on, John, about herself and Raffi and their relationship. We literally just saw a hand touch at the end of season 1. It is kind of broadened out a bit more here, the conversation between Raffi and Picard, that she wants more. She wants a proper relationship with Seven, but Seven is so hell-bent on going out and rescuing anybody that needs to be rescued that she's off out in space, leaving Raffi to continue her career in Starfleet. So while the relationship hasn't particularly broken up, what I like about that kind of description is Raffi kind of going, well, I'm not going to be the a-hole to stand in the way of someone being a hero and going out in the universe to save people. So it's kind of, well, I guess you can go out there and we'll hook back up when we meet back up kind of thing is where it seems to be left. But she has taken the La Sirena. So Seven is running the La Sirena along with the holograms that we saw from season 1, the holograms connected to Rios. The one that she calls out is Emmett, who was the engineer from season 1. But there is a line that she says that all of the holograms have been merged together now. There was 4 additional holograms, I believe. Oh, I should remember this because this was one of our 10 forward pub quiz questions from season 1 was how many holograms there were. I think it was 4 or 5, but she makes a quick mention that all of them have been merged together. So while Emmett speaks in native Spanish, he does still have the memories of the doctor who was doing the psychological profiles on the ship effectively. So that's quite interesting that he has all of them merged together into one character.
Yeah, he's a super duper hologram at the moment. He can do everything. Engineering, medical, you name it. He does it all now that they've all been merged together. Yeah. Which I'm glad that they've kept Emmett as well. Here
great,
for sure.
I love the coolness of him when he's the kind of soft light hologram, being attacked, and he's just like, again, smokeless cigar, while being attacked, and then it just quickly turn off all safety protocols and it becomes hard light and can fight instantly. Yeah. I love those.
That was pretty cool. Yeah. And the other thing as well, we get with this brief interaction of, the 3, people who are trying to, take the medical supplies that are for the Fenris Rangers is, they are actively hostile to 7 of 9 around the Borg implants that she has. Yeah. And this is carried through a little bit as well once she's on the Stargazer, as she comes to look at this or sees, I think they're in that sector where the anomaly is.
Yeah, there.
And when she comes on board, along with Admiral Picard, there is that moment where she feels that tensions are rising because of her Borg attachments that she's got. So
you hear the 2 attackers shout out, going that she's an anomaly, that she is an ex-Borg, so she doesn't deserve to live. Effectively, you hear that from her. But I love her interpretation of that scene because that is Seven's interpretation. She's walking side by side with Admiral Picard on the Stargazer, and everybody's pulling off to the sides out of his way to give him and show him respect, and she's looking at it going, they're also being critical of me. They're also looking at me really badly. Yeah. This is why she spends time on the La Sirena out in space, is because she doesn't feel like she can be around humans because she's always treated as the other, as the different one. So she's crewed her ship with just the hologram. She has no flesh and blood crew aboard the ship. It's just Emmett. And you're right, it is. Emmett says to her right at the beginning, there's something outside you should see while she's in the middle of battle. And there's something outside of this massive anomaly that's effectively draws the entire view of the Federation. But she's kind of going, I have other important things to deal with here. So, yeah, they're in the same sector. Which I like. But no, I like that that's continued. She hasn't rejoined Starfleet. She's still in that position on the Fenris Rangers, and she has got less around that.
Yes.
So, yeah. And I like Rios's reaction to what she's done to the ship, the adjustment she's made, and the obvious many battles that she's been in as well. It doesn't
also
like that.
color change. She had some red.
I think she did.
She added some go faster strips. Some
As you do when you get a second-hand car, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Your first second-hand car.
I'm going to actually kind of admit I missed the comment of the merging. So it all makes more sense now.
There you go, yeah.
But I was like, oh.
Yeah, I think the line that Seven says is, I wish we could turn off your ability to analyze all the situations from the Doctor, effectively, the Doctor.
Yeah. Because I thought it was just I don't know. I don't even know what I thought it was. I was just like, oh, it's another hologram. Cool. Okay, he's being a bit weird. Cool. All right, I'm down. Yeah, like this. Let's see. I did in my head was like, well, the other hologram's going to come out in a second. I was like, well, maybe she hasn't turned them on.
There you go.
There you go.
It's also a really interesting touch for a show that is based around everybody having translators in their head to translate all languages in the universe, or most languages in the galaxy can be translated. It's an interesting touch to keep Emmett speaking in Spanish, isn't it?
Yeah,
I liked
it. It's good. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was nice. Let's get on to our major moment from the episode.
We must face the ramifications of the Prime Directive.
John, I think you've got the massive moment from the episode, or one of the massive moments.
Well,
from the
one
episode.
of them, yes, it is the Prime Directive, but it is, my big moment is just that fantastic, the arrival of the Borg ship through the anomaly, but importantly, the transportation of the Borg Queen to deal with Picard, and to effectively, or what we think, I mean, it's still quite confusing to me, but the intention seems from the message that's come through the anomaly is that, first of all, they're saying, help us, Picard. And then secondly, that they're looking to join the Federation. They want to join up. But what we see is that there's that huge suspicion, exactly, it's been signposted by 7 of 9, and so all the shields go up, everyone's on alert, and despite the shields up, the Borg are able to penetrate those shields to transport the Queen, the Borg Queen, onto the Stargazer, who will parlay effectively and meet with Picard. And I just thought this was really good because she's both absolutely frightening. You know, she immediately, as she comes on, she says, basically I come in peace, but before that, we require power, and chucks her sort of, bionic octopus bits into the computers. Did look a little Doc Ock, didn't it? Yeah, it really did. Starts taking, and assimilating the ship, as Jurati calls it. They all start firing. She's got this fantastic shield, and also she doesn't look like the Borg Queen we saw from the movie. Great kind of helmet on her with all the wheels turning. I thought that was a real cool shot. Oh, yeah. She also has a fantastic sort of defense mechanism where she can just fire out the phaser bolts that can shoot in multiple directions. And again, you think she's killing the security team and the crew aboard the bridge, and then 7 of 9 saying she's just stunning them. But it's both, are they coming in peace? Why do they require power? What does that mean? Yeah. Why are they being hostile and coming in peace? So it's really kind of, you can understand why Rios is, shields up, fire on her, and all this. There's the whole conversation beforehand, in his ready room, where effectively they're discussing about whether the Borg is a friend or a foe, what this could mean, that the Borg could be the Federation's greatest ally if they accept them, or is this, if they no longer have the power and the numbers, that it's trying to attack their foe in the Federation through deception? And there's a great line from Rios, really liked it. It says, "We're the tip of the spear and you're the ranking officer to Picard." And it says, "With the devil calling your name." And then you get the Queen arriving and just this chaos happening where Picard has to set the self-destruct sequence as she's taking more and more, or assimilating more and more of both the Stargazer, but using it as a hub because of this Borg technology. So you're just like, uh-oh, and then you have the massive explosion, which turns to white screen, and then we move on. But I just loved this whole sequence. It felt really tense, really confusing in terms of the intentions of the Borg.
And because we saw it in two different ways. We saw it at the opening of the episode without some of the context in it, and then at the end of the episode with all the context, everything going on. I think it feels like this is supposed to be confusing. You're totally right to question the intentions of the Borg here. She does say, as you say, the Borg Queen says, "I'm here for peace, but first power." And you can take that two ways. Is she here to take over the entirety of Starfleet, or is she going to use it differently? Why did she call Picard and Picard alone? The last time they met, Picard stood down, didn't eradicate the Borg. That was a decision he made. He did not destroy the Borg when he had an opportunity to do so. He let go of his past, his experience as Locutus of Borg. He stepped back from it, and the anger that he felt. So are they using him thinking, well, actually, Picard will understand. Picard will give us an opportunity to speak here. Also, I don't know whether this means anything at all, but we've seen various shapes of the Borg ship before. This time, Borg ship coming as a cross, a kind of a penitent symbol.
That's true.
It could be. We've seen cubes, we've seen spheres before, but we haven't seen a ship like this before. We also haven't mentioned throughout the episode, but the opening titles have changed. And last season, the opening titles indicated what was going on in the entire season. It was full of flowers and full of things going on that were developed across the season. The flowers being the big battle tools at the end of the season.
Yeah.
So at the start of the credits in this episode, we have got the Borg ship forming part of it. They have, unfortunately, absolutely destroyed one of the best theme tunes in all of Star Trek history. I love the Picard theme tune, but they've turned it really dark for season 2. It looks completely different. But I guess that's the theme of the season, right? So, of course, they're going to change it up for season 2. But I do love the old Picard theme. I was singing it over and over again afterwards.
Well, and also the other side of this, which is kind of intriguing, is that before the auto-destruct sequence gets to 0, the Borg Queen looks at Picard and recounts the words of his mother that he uses in his speech at Starfleet Academy, which is look up at the sky, you know, and see the stars and all of that. So
is the Borg Queen his mother?
Well, that would be really, really interesting. Maybe. And again, it's this spatial anomaly. Is it a spatial temporal anomaly? Is it something traveling through time as much as jumping through space?
Space and time.
Exactly.
I have so many questions about the Borg Queen.
Yeah.
I'm just like, is there now more than one? Like, the whole thing, I thought there was always just one.
That's right.
But is this Queen 2.0? Like, she's giving herself an upgrade, or...
The fact that we don't see her...
exactly. I don't think that's the Queen.
Yeah. I think it is the Borg Queen. It is identified by the Borg transmission saying we're sending the Queen over, but she does look very different than we've seen her in the past. We've seen a very specific version of the Borg Queen every time, and you're right. I suppose it manifests itself in various locations, but there is just one central Queen of the Hive, effectively. So, so it is interesting, but you're right. Again, Jurati is questioning what's going on. Jurati is the one putting it forward that they're breaking into the systems and that they're using the Borg technology within the Stargazer to get onto all the other ships and take control of them all. And you're wondering whether just Jurati's jumping to conclusions because these are the Borg, or whether she's really seeing exactly what they're doing. So definitely this is a big story point for the rest of the season. Where you're not supposed to know at the end of the episode what the intentions of them are. But if this continued, without what happens afterwards, then it actually would have ended right here because, as you say, the self-destruct
season 2, episode 1, the end.
Now we're on to season 3.
Exactly.
But it would be, I guess, it would have to be named something different because Picard is right at the center of that explosion. So
certainly, yeah. But yeah, great. I think having the Borg and the Borg Queen, always good, and just continuing from the first season as well, with the Borg being central in that as much as with the Romulans. So yeah, really, really enjoyed it.
There was such a big story point in Star Trek: The Next Generation. The introduction of the Borg was really early on. It was something introduced to them as main villains. They eventually took over Picard. He became part of the Borg. So they are such a central villain for Next Generation, for Picard particularly, that it's great to have them in here in the show here.
Beyond that, they are, if I'm kind of reading my story right, i.e. Discovery, they're in Discovery, or supposedly you could read that they are in Discovery as well in the previous season. I'm not saying the spoiler. There's a thing in there that you think might be the proto Borg. That's all I'll say. But they're everywhere. They are the central. You talked about how Kirk and Picard are the antithesis of each other to a degree, right? Here you have the antithesis of the bad guys. They are literally a swarm, singular-minded. There's no emotion. They are logical, pure logic. They want to dominate based on logic, not based on fear or power or control. It is literally that.
And it's eradicating the individuality of all species, whereas Starfleet is about incorporating the individuality of all species into their system so that they can work together. Whereas the Borg is, if we remove all that, then we all work as one. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And I think it's why I like them, but at the same point, I'm like, you got to tell me a different story. And we'll get into that when we kind of wrap up.
Yep. And they were also massive villains for Star Trek Voyager as well. So they were very heavily incorporated in there. So it'll be interesting if how they tell the story of the Borg Queen and the Borg in this season. They've almost been eradicated from the galaxy, as we saw in season 1. So interested to see, will they come back up? Are they here to join the Federation? How interesting would that be?
Yeah, exactly.
Can you trust them?
I said, yeah, well, that's the thing. I need a different story. I just don't need Lucucius 2.0 now. But we will see. And I think that's the interesting thing, which I'll take in my next point, is the explosion happens. That is huge. Because essentially what you're getting is, I jokingly said, okay, that's the end of the season. Because it could have been.
It could have been.
It's an interesting, fun bit. You could have just... Surprise! We did one episode. That's it. Because no one would expect it.
They certainly wouldn't, especially because season 3 is already filming. So
exactly. Well, so the interesting part I found was we get back to Chateau Picard. There's some weird, essentially synthetic android, kind of being his new servant. Doesn't know who Laris is, and then we meet a certain. Quizzical guest.
Just quickly, just to make the comment about it, the synthetic that is serving Picard is the type of synthetic that we saw right back in episode 1 of Picard season 1. So, so those are the synthetics that effectively caused synthetics to be outlawed around the universe. Right. So really interesting to see them still operating here with Picard. Did you notice the other quick touch that you're in somewhere new? Picard's badge looks really different from the badge he was handed when he went out in this mission.
Much more bombastic.
It looks very different, yes.
Yeah. Are we in the ultimate timeline? Was it the ultimate? The alternate? The mirror universe.
Yes.
Are we back there again?
It looks like it, doesn't it?
Yeah, there is quite a big portrait on the wall of Picard that looks very similar to his mirror universe counterpart. Yes.
So this not beat around the bush. Q.
Yes, Q's here.
He's back.
Yes, John Delancey.
And this is the one. So I loved they showed Q as we saw him in Star Trek Next Generation. Mm-hmm. Quite good de-aging.
It's really
Didn't
good.
look too bad. And mine was quite pixelated, and I rewatched it again just based on where the way I was watching it was like, I bumped it up to 1080 and I was like, oh no, they did good with this.
Yeah.
It's like Robert Downey Jr. level because it was a split second. But then they age him up and I'm like, cool. So this is where I need to bow down before my brethren and in your Star Trek knowledge. I've watched Star Trek, I watched Enterprise, I watched, not Enterprise, the Next Generation, etc., etc. I've already talked. Q was always a fun character. Yeah. I kind of remember the ending, but as I said, it's not top of my head. So, the trial never ends.
Yes.
His line, cool.
Yeah.
Huh?
What does it mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I know the significance is big.
Yeah.
Because the way they deliver it with a grandioso kind of delivery. But, huh?
Right. Well,
please enlighten me.
I'll break it down as best I can, and I know there are many, many Star Trek fans out there, so correct me if I'm wrong. Of course, please send your emails to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. But effectively, Q has been sitting in judgment over the human race and using Picard as his emissary and representative of the human race. He tries to test him constantly to see what humans would do in certain situations. And he has, in the past, sat as judge. He's literally sat in a judge's chair with Picard representing as the defendant in a court case.
Yes.
This happens multiple times. I think right back to the first episode, Encounter at Farpoint, our introduction of Q is that he is looking at these people that are exploring the galaxy going, you're not even ready for this. You shouldn't have humans out in space this far. You're not worth it. You're not worthy of this. And multiple appearances after that throughout the 7 seasons of Next Generation. But right to the end, the final episode, the final 2 episodes, All Good Things, part 1 and 2, where he takes Picard on a journey throughout time, his own past, future, and present, to test him again, to put him on trial again. So what he's saying here is, I'm still monitoring you. I'm still testing you. I still don't believe the human race are fit for the position they have been in the world. Why are you so central, effectively? So Q is massively powerful. Absolutely insanely powerful.
Yeah.
He effectively, and his species could, if they wanted to, or at least it's been said, that they could snap their fingers and eradicate humanity from existence. So that's the kind of
it's almost godlike.
Yes, absolutely. But that's kind of pressure that is on Picard to display why humanity should exist, is because Q keeps going to him, if you fail the trial, snap, you're all gone. So that's why Q's so interesting. But he's also hilarious on screen. I absolutely love John Delancey with Patrick Stewart. The two of them have just this great rapport, even in this moment. I love that we have the repeated line of Mon Capitaine to Jean Luc Picard, just a little reference to him being French again.
Definitely. And I mean, ultimately, very intriguing. What does he mean? The very end of the road not taken, when Picard pushes him to, where is he? Yes, it's Chateau Picard, but we've got the hexagons in the sky, the solar reflectors, yes, it's the same, but different in terms of the portrait and all that. So, again, it's also Q's ability to talk in the riddles that Picard has to figure out. Yeah. This is so good seeing these two back on screen.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yes. Does that
Thank
kind
you.
of explain
that does.
Yeah.
It does. I just kind of, they did a Netflix on it, which is they left this huge cliffhanger. And I'm like, cool. Could have used with like 30 seconds more.
No. No. If you had your questions answered, you wouldn't come back for episode 2, Chris.
Oh, 100% I would. But that's for different reasons.
Yes, I'm making you podcast about it. No.
Yes, exactly.
It didn't take much pressure. Aren't we lucky that we do get episode 2 next week, though? No major waiting. This wasn't the end of season cliffhanger, which is cool.
No. Yeah. But yeah, look, so that was my major point, which is just kind of like, huh? But I'm glad for the explanation. Thank you.
There you go. But great to have Q. Yeah, I'm really intrigued to see what happened. I think, are we all kind of on the same side here that this is probably Mirror Universe Picard or Mirror Universe?
It feels like it, yeah.
No, so I think it's essentially because it's Borg and there's time and temporal and the thing. My assumption is it's not mirror, it's an alternate timeline.
Okay.
Where it's, as you said, the end of the journey not traveled. Or less traveled, essentially. So, essentially, there's this whole thing about certain alternate universes are essentially choice A or choice B.
Yeah.
the universe we're in is choice A, but choice B is a different universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Starfleet being something. Starfleet not happening. Or Picard's dad not going into becoming a chateau owner or a vineyard owner and becoming an explorer like his dad. Like something, it's that tweak and change.
Yeah.
That essentially that has led to this horrible...
I think you're right as well with the timeline side, because, there's the reference of time by Picard at the Academy, where it's not space is the final frontier, but increasingly time is. And the notion that time provides many opportunities, but very rarely second chances. So,
absolutely.
I guess, so it may not be that mirror universe, but it could be the same universe.
So,
okay, yeah.
With a different...
Same universe, different time, but the Borg Queen that we see at the beginning, or the end, the first episode, this Borg Queen we just saw,
right,
is essentially the Borg Queen from this other timeline, essentially come through, and she needs power because they've just travelled through time.
Maybe.
And Picard is back in that other time as well, or helped or met her at that other time, essentially. And he pushed her forward to join. He managed to convince her to join Starfleet, to be good,
right,
and join Starfleet. So, and then she went through time and etc. So I think it is going to be a timey-wimey kind of Doctor Who-esque kind of fun and games where we're jumping a lot, or there's going to be at least, we're back in 2022. We're back in 1800s. We're now in First Contact again. We're now blah, blah, like just jumping a bit so that it's as you said, what was the end of the Enterprise, or the end of Next Generation that called All Good Things?
All Good Things, yeah.
Similar to that, but in different. Right. I think it's that, but different.
And just to bring on board some of our fellow Trekkies and Trekkers who may not be as aware of what the mirror universe is, just really specifically, I suppose, to talk about why it's so exciting. Mirror universes are so exciting in Star Trek. What Chris is talking about there is kind of the Marvel what if. You have a branching timeline, and one branch of it goes one way and one branch of it goes the other. Yeah. The mirror universe is very specifically, it's the exact opposite of the universe that we have spent all of our time in with these characters. So what you see is really villainous versions of all of your best loved characters. So it's the old joke of the mirror universe. Spock has the goatee beard to denote that he's a bad guy, not good guy. So,
yes.
So seeing a mirror universe of this of Picard is something that would be really interesting to me if we get a real dark timeline of Picard. So that would be interesting to see.
I just don't think they'll do mirror. I don't think they can go the mirror because it's been used in so many other shows.
But
I think they'll do
Star Trek
all
thing.
I know, and I agree. It's just been used recently in Discovery.
It absolutely has, yeah. But it was
lot.
used in DS9 and Star Trek Next Generation about 5 episodes apart. Both shows used the mirror universe about 5 or 6 episodes apart. So when both of those were airing at the same time, so entirely possible. But you never know. Sure. You never know. We'll see in episode 2. Great to have Q back though. And my big point for the episode is kind of the only thing left to discuss about the episode. It started off as a big point, but it's not really that massive a point because we've talked about a lot of it already. But we should give a bit of reverence for the return of Whoopi Goldberg to the Star Trek universe. Guinan in number 10 Forward Avenue. Finally, our pub quiz makes sense again, John.
Yes. The bar is simply denoted by the number 10 in Forward Avenue. So really good. A historical area of San Francisco.
Exactly.
I guess. So really good, yeah.
The pub or the bar aboard the Enterprise was 10 Forward. So yes. I like the nice little touches. It's just small touches, but good to see Whoopi Goldberg back here. Uses a similar explanation to Q about wanting to make sure that people recognize that she is similar to them because humans don't tend to like people that don't age around them. So she's aging appropriately, which I thought was quite good. Also a good conversation between the two of them over some hooch, because Picard is not there to visit just an old friend. He wants a bit of advice about his love life. We talked a little bit about that earlier on. Chris, you were mentioning it. But Guinan's advice has always been really important to Picard. She really understands him. She really understands his motivations, and she can get through to him. Guinan mentions here that they have gone through some of the most interesting diplomatic moments in his career where she's given him guidance. They've jumped across space and time. So, we saw that in Star Trek Generations, that they've done so many things together that they are compatriots, and he's always looking for her opinion and her help, differently to Deanna Troi, who can see inside you and interpret your emotions. She is a great listener who understands him really well and is able to say very direct things to him. Just in contrast, if you think about the conversation he had with Laris, Laris is asking him general questions and going, "Ooh, am I getting too personal with you?" Because he has got this strong shell around him, Jean-Luc.
Yes.
To most people around him, they feel that he is commander first, not a human, effectively.
Yeah.
Whereas she can penetrate it instantly. She knows exactly who she's talking to. And I absolutely love her kind of final point on it before she moves on and just says, "You're just here to get drunk with a friend, right?" But her final point on it to him is, it's not that you don't have enough time left to find love. Time is not your issue. Your issue is you and always has been you. You're standing in your own way.
Yeah.
So love for a day is better than no love in your entire lifetime, is effectively what she's saying.
Yeah. And that, she, as you say, she comes out and says it. She says, the only thing you're afraid to explore is in your heart. Mm-hmm. And the other is that the answers are not in the stars and never have been. So she's really direct with him. She knows, it's not to do, he uses command and duty and going boldly as these fronts. And I guess it's to do with that flashback that we see with young Jean-Luc Picard with his mother, and maybe the traumatic events or the family events.
Yeah, exactly.
That, it could in fact be he worries he would be like his father if you interpret, will we fight less here? That somehow their family was troubled in terms of the relationship. So who knows? But again, it's great to see Guinan and have her back and have those two sitting down over a Sororian brandy.
There you go, John. So that's obviously not our pub quiz question. What's the
no, it really isn't
made of. Yes, no, it is a great character to see back on the show, and I'm hoping we'll get to see Guinan again in the future of the series, because I just like the two relationship. I like the relationship between Jean-Luc and Guinan. Very cool.
Yeah, I she was always a character I really enjoyed, and especially the fact that she has a history with Q, and there's some. We were discussing it up before we started recording. There's definitely something there. I know that they have mentioned that they've known each other for years, etc., etc., etc. We just don't know. It's never been fully explored. I think this will allow it,
maybe,
to be explored a bit more, and kind of this is going to answer a lot of the questions that Next Generation never answered, etc., etc. It would be fun,
and it is great to have Whoopi Goldberg. Famously, Whoopi Goldberg went to the production of Star Trek Next Generation asking to be on the show because she got into acting because of Nichelle Nichols as Uhuru. That was her inspiration to go into acting. Oscar award-winning actress Whoopi Goldberg. So great to have her back in the show. So good stuff. Any points, Easter eggs, notes that you guys haven't talked about?
No, not from me.
No, nothing from me.
One tiny little note from me. I just really loved Dr. Jurati drunk explaining her love life to the person that's coming on to her at the diplomatic event. I just thought it was hilarious that effectively, it was a bit of a miss in season 1, but effectively it seemed like Jurati was the silly student that fell for her professor, tried to carry out his will, and then fell for somebody else, and then fell for somebody else. It felt like she was falling through her love life in not a great way in season 1. So a nice little touch to have that into season 2, for the character. I thought that was quite fun. And I think that's it. I don't want to give away the other note because I know that that's your 10 forward pub quiz question for the episode. On the other note I had. That's it, I suppose. What did you think overall of Star Trek Picard season 2, episode 1, The Stargazer, John?
Yep, I love this. I thought it was a great reintroduction into season 2. I'd give it 4.5 Earl Grey colds out of 5. I just thought it had a huge amount. It started off very familiar grounds, and it just built and built to that fantastic sequence with the Borg Queen, with Picard moving into this familiar yet unfamiliar place with Q there, one of his great nemesis, really. And I loved having Guinan brought on. As you say, the shorthand, just having Rios, Jurati, Raffi, Elnor, all these people, Soji as well, just all being given their moment, but ultimately this building really nicely to a really action-packed, tense, intriguing end of the first episode. I really cannot wait for the next episode. Really just wanted me to sort of move straight on to episode 2. So yeah, 4.5 Earl Grey colds out of 5 from me.
So 4.5 out of 5, John. That's a strong start to the season.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah.
How about yourself, Chris? What did you think of the first episode of season 2?
I'm closer to about 3.5 if I'm going to kind of giving myself a score. It literally just because I could have done with a bit more Basil exposition. It's been a bit of time since we met these characters. So they took a lot of shorthand, a lot of kind of direct choices. And I kind of understand why. It's this whole piece that I'm afraid to judge before we've seen their full vision. So I'm going to kind of slowly evolve my thoughts on this as the season goes on, because I think that was some of the decisions some of the kind of points we made in season 1, which was they started strong in certain storylines and then some of the storylines just fizzled out, took a sharp left, took a sharp right, went straight into a wall. So with this one again, I'm willing to give them the trust in that some of these storylines could be fantastic.
Yep.
But also, like, for example, let's say Laris. That could go straight to the end. And it literally would be the last episode he then kind of hooks up with Laris because he's learned his lesson. I'm like, oh, okay, let's see how you progress this story.
Absolutely.
And I think the only piece that I could have done with, as I say, about 10, 15 more minutes, it's streaming. They're not constrained by domestic TV anymore. So they could have given it an extra 10, 15 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, just to stretch out some of the more important parts, like the Borg bit and some of these others, just so you get a bit more Basil exposition, that kind of thing. I just wanted to understand a bit more because it's been a while since we've been in this universe. So
I still wonder. We use that a lot, and I still wonder since Austin Powers is almost 25 years old. I wonder should we retire the Basil exposition phrase and just go for exposition? That's all it is.
But it's so much fun when it's hello, I'm Basil exposition. I'm here to explain everything.
Very old joke though. Now we're quite old as well, I suppose. So
exactly.
But good stuff. For me, loved this episode. Thought it was a great kickoff to the season, and wow, what a wonderful opening! You open up aboard the Stargazer with Rios, feeling like a real captain, surrounded by a full crew. It felt like something out of the Star Trek movies and out of stuff like Discovery. Discovery really feels like proper strong Star Trek with massive budget behind it. So a great opener. Having Picard there with Laris, really good scenes with them, bringing back in the emotion and heart that's always there within the Picard show. And then having the reintroduction of Guinan and the reintroduction of Q. Both great reintroductions, felt just like the characters walking out of the show 20 years ago. Loved the touch, you mentioned it, Chris, but loved the touch of having John Delancey looking like his former Q self. Yeah. This is the first time Paramount have done this. This is something that we see very regularly in all the Marvel shows, the Star Wars shows, actors being de-aged to play younger versions of themselves. This is the first time Paramount have done it, and I think it works really well. It's better than casting Tom Hardy as Jean Luc Picard, a younger version of him, right? So nice little touch there.
But it's not only that they did it, but they also just did a great little snidey comment from Q to say, I'll make myself look like you, and they don't have to do it now. Exactly. So it's just really clever.
Yeah, definitely. But really like this, really like the reintroduction of all the characters. Great to see that everybody got their moment. There was no person left out without a big scene throughout the episode, I think. So excited to see what's going to happen in the next episode. There's nice little those nice little tense, cliffhanger endings that I really enjoy, you know, that moment where you don't really know exactly what's going on, but you know Picard's in a bad place. He's there with an omnipotent being who's been testing him for 3 decades. Very interested to see what that's going to play out next episode.
Yes.
Sorry, and I should say very much, I am very interested to see where this goes. I like this thing. I'm here for the journey. I know I was a bit more dour than both of you, but no, still here for season 2.
Excellent. We have one more piece of business to get on with, as we always do in our Star Trek Picard coverage. We are kicking off our 10 Forward pub quiz for the season, the 10 Forward quiz. We will be asking a question every episode throughout the season of Picard. You gather together all your answers and you can email us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com to begin with the chance of winning some Star Trek Picard related goodies at the end of the season.
Yes, definitely. Welcome, fellow Trekkies and quizzers, to the 10 Forward pub quiz. Yes, we're in Guinan's bar for this season, and for this time we can sip or down a Cerurian brandy, like Guinan and Picard did. But
top shelf or hooch, John? Top shelf or hooch?
It's hooch. Yeah, it's hooch, most definitely. So question 1 from episode 1. What are the 5 salutations given between Picard and Laris over a glass of red wine at Chateau Picard?
Excellent. I would say to our fellow Trekkies and Trekkers, as they're from multiple languages, you may need to put on your subtitles to get the spelling right.
Look at you giving clues.
Well, I know. When do we start this?
I know.
Been doing that all along,
Giving
especially
the
when things are
answers
difficult. But
immediately.
Yeah, subtitles are probably going to be your friend for this one.
But let me just repeat the question. What are the 5 salutations given between Picard and Laris over a glass of red wine at Chateau Picard?
Excellent. Send your answers in to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com. Just mark them 10 Forward pub quiz or Star Trek Picard, whatever you want to. You can also send any thoughts that you have to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com, or you can join us over on our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/tvpodcastindustries. There'll be a spoiler post up for each episode as they're released on Amazon Prime. And you can share your thoughts there.
Yes, so we'd love to hear from you all. And if you want to hear your voice on the podcast, of course, you can head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and record up to 90 seconds of your thoughts on the tab on the right-hand side of the screen as well. Yes, so any feedback, comments, theories, spots, you name it, just send them in for our feedback section.
Yes. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our podcast, the end of this premiere, the end of this first episode of season 2. But it's just a beginning of our journey into the stars. If you would like to follow us on that journey, make sure you head on over to tvpodcastindustries.com and subscribe on every Starfleet or Romulan or Borg podcast catcher. We are there. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple. We're on Google. We are everywhere. So make sure you subscribe, like, and don't forget on Spotify, you can also rate us on each episode. It does help with our visibility. Do you know what also helps? Heading on to patreon.com/tvpodcastindustries, where for a single galactic credit, one single or a bottle of Picard, Chateau Picard, if you will, you can support us with an ongoing fee. It really helps us. It keeps the lights on, the dilithium crystals running. See, I learned what I knew. I'm working here, people.
Well done, Chris. Well done.
Yeah, thank you. And we really appreciate it. We really do. But if you don't want to and you want to help us with the replicator, why not head on over to buymeacoffee.com/tvpi, where for a single price of a coffee, you can replicate a steaming or cold Earl Grey for our producer as he toils away into the wee hours editing the podcast for your dulcet ears.
I don't know whether people have dulcet ears.
I don't think so.
I was going with it. Just keep going.
But I will admit now, I am not a fan of Earl Grey tea, and I couldn't think of anything worse than Earl Grey cold. Ooh.
I know. But you see, this is the thing. Right. We're going to use it as an actual kind of essentially finish the podcast where we get the Earl Grey cold.
There you go. Go to buymeanearlgrey.com/TVPI or buy me a bottle of Chateau Picard.com.
There you go. That could work better.
Maybe that'll work. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be back next week with our coverage of Star Trek Picard Season 2, Episode 2, Penance. We'd love to hear your feedback, and we will have our next question in our 10 Forward pub quiz, so make sure you join us. Also out today is The Boys' animated spin-off, Diabolical, a very different show. Possibly for a very different audience than Star Trek Picard. But we will be chatting about that later on the podcast. Bye-bye, fellow Trekkies and Trekkers. Talk to you next time.
Make it so.
Yeah, thank you so much, fellow Trekkies, for joining us. Remember, keep watching, keep listening, and keep looking up.
Look up.
Bye.
Bye.